Good morning, Louise,
Morning, Rob.
and good morning to everybody watching this episode of God is Supernatural, or maybe listening to us on UGN Jams, Urban Gospel Network Radio. Check them out. They are a great internet radio station, Christian radio station. So, with God is Supernatural, our verses 1 Corinthians 2, 4 and 5. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. That's the way it should be done. It's a far more exciting way of living, isn't it, Chris? Isn't it, Louise?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Living by propositional truth is not the way we should be living our Christian faith. It should be lived experience of God, His presence, and His power. So our mission, guys, is to encourage you to believe that God is fully present, and we have some great testimonies on that, don't we, Louise?
Yeah, overflowing with testimonies at the moment, having just done testimony week a couple of weeks ago now, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, we are going through some of the testimonies coming out of Kingdom First. We've just finished our year one and year two. We start again in October. If you are inspired to step into the wonderful world of the Holy Spirit and to experience what it really means to be a empowered disciple, then why not sign up? Check up on our website, networkvineyard.church, go to events and look at events down in October and sign up, join us. We would love to have you with us. But yeah, this is the presence of God, not in theory, but in practice. And the first testimony is really talking about that. Because we had a young lady who signed up, and so yeah, what was her her stance before coming on, Louise?
I think she said she was just going to come along. She was interested in the theology, I think. And then her decision from the start was when it comes to the practical stuff, I'll just kind of take a step back and I'll just observe what's happening. I think that's what she was thinking, wasn't it?
That is what she was thinking. So she would avoid anything that required hands-on participation.
Yeah,
That's not going
definitely.
to work in Kingdom First. It's all about participation, guys. Great content, great material. She had great theology, but only doing it is doing it. Um, so our first session is an orientation, and I think this was effectively our second session, so pretty close to the beginning,
Yeah.
um, where we do a demonstration of healing. So I asked for a volunteer, someone who needs healing, and I think we've already shared her testimony. So somebody who had was in intense pain and being able to raise her shoulder, raise her arm above her shoulder and put dishes like in and stack dishes up in a cupboard. Just had been unable to do that and had been unable to do that for 3 days. So she volunteered, and I asked this lady and another lady to be the prayers, and I'd coach them through that praying session. So so that's what we did. So um, she said, "Well, yeah. Do you want to describe how she felt about that?"
She said she was chosen to volunteer. I'm not sure that's the definition of volunteer, but I think you chose her, Rob. And she said as she was doing that, as she was chosen, she was trembling inside. I think those were her words, trembling for herself, and she said trembling for the poor volunteer that she was going to be praying for. Um, but
But yeah, because she was coming from this place of God was taking her out of a comfort zone gradually, wasn't she?
yeah,
But this whole area of the supernatural realm and God being supernatural was quite deeply foreign, and also, yeah, she was quite scared of that.
Yeah, she talked about not kind of having belief in God, but not having day-to-day interactions, relationship with him. I think that was all quite new to her, wasn't it? Even
Yeah,
though she was on prayer ministry teams. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so her primary desire was to understand the theology of prayer and the theology of the miraculous and the theology of the promise of Christ, to know about it rather than, well, she obviously did want to know it,
Yeah,
but we can be stuck on that. We could be stuck on not being able to cross that particular River Jordan, can't we?
absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, I did interrupt you.
Yeah, well, she said, I think her words were she never thought that God would use her to bring healing about, but she was chosen on this night and she stepped in to the teaching. So you've done the teaching, Robert, and it's very much about stepping into the power and authority that God has given us and commanding the body what you want it to do. And she said that she did this, and she was gobsmacked. She said the lady in front of her just suddenly pronounced it was better, and we gave testimony, didn't we, on a previous video of how she was kind of doing the backstroke and was really excited, and she couldn't believe it herself. And a phrase that really stuck out for me was this lady said that she began to doubt her own doubts about the
Yeah,
fact that God could use her,
yeah,
which, yeah, it was amazing. And she tried to write it off as, well, God didn't use me. It was the other two people in the group that were praying for this particular lady. But the person that received the healing actually said that it was when she prayed something that something clicked and something happened. So it was just undeniable that God used her in the
yeah.
process of
Well,
healing.
she said the very words that I spoke moved through their body.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so direct kind of cause and effect there.
absolutely.
And so it really unsettled her. Um, but also it changed her, she said. And
Yeah,
that seems to have been the pivot point of just crossing that particular Jordan.
absolutely. And we can fast forward over the weeks and we can see evidence of that in massive ways, can't we? She started to pray for people in church and seen healings. And then she talked about she's a commuter, so she prays prayer bombs on, that's what she calls them, on the tube. So she sees somebody with a physical need, say somebody on crutches or something, she is praying for them without them even knowing. So she
Yeah.
is. If you're not believing something's going to happen, you're not going to bother doing that, are you? But
No.
her faith has massively increased.
Yeah. Yeah. She is. I mean, if we didn't know this before about this kind of where she was standing positionally before coming up to the course, I would not have. I would not have been able to guess it because the change was so quick
It
and
was.
so remarkable. It's like she's been doing it all her life and ministering in power and also receiving. She's had a number of very intense supernatural experiences with the Holy Spirit. So we're going to just share one of them. Do you want to take us into that?
Yes. So I can't remember what session this was, and I don't think she could remember, but it was in a breakout room again, and she was being prayed for. Um, the team were just inviting the Holy Spirit, and she said it went from she almost couldn't hear the prayers that were being prayed over her, and she just felt led to start speaking in tongues, praying in tongues. And as she did that, she just became really, really hot. And she talked about her right arm just started trembling as well. Um, and she actually said, when she was giving us this testimony, it wasn't as though she could stop the trembling if she wanted to, but she knew it wasn't her that was doing it. She knew it was the Holy Spirit. So
Yeah.
she didn't, and she just allowed it to happen. Um, and that it was, for her, it was the Lord just breaking down the theoretical stuff and the religious stuff that she'd been holding on to, kind of her relationship being based on theology, and she talks about being a real logical person.
Yeah.
And this was just her really feeling and knowing his presence like she'd never experienced before.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So, I mean, praying for that lady and the healing was a real pivot. But this moment, um, up until now, she said that God had been theology, not actual presence.
Mm,
And this was the moment. Suddenly, she was like, God's very present and he's very real. Um, and the next day, so that was an intense experience, and there were quite a few for her, um, with some other quite astonishing things going on. But um, this was defining in terms of this part of her season of journey. And she went to the gym the next morning, and she was still aware of God's presence and feeling God's presence on her, um, which I think was very encouraging for her. She had a chat with her friend, didn't she?
yeah. And when you sense the presence like that, you don't want it to go, do you? You just keep waking up every morning thinking, please still be with me, Holy Spirit. And he is still with you, but you just kind of feeling it and knowing it in a different way, aren't you? Which is what she was experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, she spoke to her friend the next day, and I think part of her reflection was, um, it shook me.
Mm,
It really shook me,
yeah,
but it was good.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
kind of like that. I mean, what was shaken were her assumptions, her presuppositions about the box that she had put God in.
Yeah,
And suddenly, God was nothing like her little box.
yeah. And she talked about the changes, doesn't she? She said she hears from God a lot more.
Yeah,
Her sensitivities increased, as well as her confidence in praying for people. And she said she really is kind of praying prayers in faith and declaration. So let the pain be gone, and then she talked about almost giving thanks before she sees the results. So just believing the power and authority that God's given her.
yeah, yeah. So let's move on to the next testimony, because there's a tie into this, because that demonstration healing, um, was an explosion, really.
It was.
It seems to have had a major impact in other ways. So um, we came out of so that was a demonstration in the main group, and then we went into our smaller groups. So the lady that had been healed was in that smaller group, and uh, the other lady that was in that smaller group is the person whose testimony we're going to share now. But she had significant physical uh, injuries that she was coping with
Yeah,
to her foot, primarily foot, ankle, leg.
yeah,
She'd been bedbound for quite considerable time. Her foot was almost immobile. I can't remember how long. Do you know?
I don't think she said the length of time, but it sounded like it had been a long time. Yeah.
And she was on immensely strong painkillers.
Yeah.
You could describe them.
Yeah. So I think she was on codeine and paracetamol, but also opioids,
Yeah.
things like morphine, which are very strong painkillers. And she was on them regularly. I think she said 8 tablets a day at one point.
Whoa. And they're quite addictive, aren't they?
They can be, yes,
Can
definitely.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and um, I mean, I know you did the testimony with her, but do you want to just explain the kind of fears that were really
Yeah. So,
weighing down on her? Let's just explain that situation before the results of the prayer.
so I think there was a picking up from her. I'm not sure she actually used this word, but a real sense of hopelessness. She hadn't walked independently for a long time. She was needing help with everyday things such as washing. She couldn't get out the house without being carried out the house. And I think she even talked at one point about asking the Lord to take her. You know, she'd had enough of all of this. So a lady in a really desperate situation,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. So she was the other person in this breakout group, and that's what she was experiencing. But this lady who had just been healed, the faith levels were sky high. I mean, um, one, I think she'd been healed, but two, there was just a very powerful experience of the Holy Spirit on her, and the joy was overflowing. So we were praying for this lady with her ankle. So because normally I would be thinking when you have that level of disability, um, and you're going to need like creative miracles, and the circumstances just intimidate you,
Yeah,
and the faith levels are like really small. Um, and this was totally the opposite. Faith level was so high. So we were praying for her. Um, so do you want to just take us through some of the changes?
yeah. So after prayer, she said her pain level. We normally encourage people to start at 10. I think for some reason, she started at a 9, but she said after prayer, the pain had gone down to a 2 or a 3, which is fantastic. But also, she felt really, really encouraged because where she'd had little or no movement in her ankle, she was able, after prayer, to have a little bit of movement there. And she said that just really, really encouraged her from having nothing to just having that little bit. Was absolutely amazing. Not only that, she didn't give this testimony on the night, but the following week she told us that she had reduced her pain relief. So these really strong opioid pain relief that she'd been taken, she'd gone down to just taking 1 tablet at night to help her sleep. And then the rest of the time she
I
was
think
just
she didn't she do it like overnight?
she did,
She just
yes.
decided, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And then she was just taking a paracetamol and codeine, which is kind of fairly regular pain relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, which is amazing. I think when she spoke to the healthcare professionals, I remember her saying they were like, "But you are still taking it, aren't you?" And they're like, "No." She was like, "Stopped it," which they couldn't believe that. So yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, yeah. I mean that is astonishing. And the experience of the Holy Spirit, she said, was like, I mean, her body was shaking, but she also had this internal shaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a very peculiar sensation, isn't it? Because I think you've experienced it.
I
Um,
have. Yeah.
yeah, do you want to describe it?
it it's hard to describe, isn't it? It's internal shaking, but she also mentioned a peace, which is how I've experienced before. So some kind of movement within you, but you know it's good and it's from the Holy Spirit and it's Him doing His work. So you have an overriding sense of peace. Yeah.
Yeah, which which was profound because the lack of peace was tied to the fact that she was facing up to not being able to walk again, because that's what the doctors
Yeah.
were saying and talking about. So the fact that she might not ever be able to walk again, having been someone who'd really liked to walk and
Yeah.
did walking as a recreation and was very active, um, was I think contributing to that level of hopelessness that she was talking about.
Yeah.
So that's a profound internal change and emotional healing, isn't it? When you can suddenly
Absolutely.
I have
Yeah.
peace about.
Yeah. Where there's been no peace for so long.
Mm.
But she was actually giving this testimony on the day that she'd been to the hospital and had a 6-week review with her consultant.
Yeah.
Um, and she said that the surgeon that had done the surgery, he commented, yeah, I can still see the swelling, but let's go and do an X-ray. Apparently they don't normally do X-rays at 6 weeks, but for some reason this surgeon decided to do it. So she went off, had her X-ray, came back to the room where the consultant was, and entered the room. And she said her consultant was sat there smiling. So the X-ray is sent digitally to this surgeon's computer, and he said, those bones are almost fused. And he said, that is absolutely remarkable. And went on to say, we don't normally bother doing an X-ray at 6 weeks because we're not expecting too much to have happened. We normally leave it to 12 weeks. She went on to ask, does that mean I can walk again? And he was saying, yes, you can. She'd got a big boot on her leg, I understand. And he was telling her, you can take that boot off.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Start walking with crutches. And she said she's not normally emotional, but at this point, she became really quite emotional and was in tears. Um, and she said that for the first time, she felt like she could look forward to a normal life.
Yeah.
Um, and she just really stepped into that peace that she'd felt on the previous weeks, knowing that God was in control and God was doing all of this. Um, yeah, so all that going through being ground down and having bad news from one week to another, she was now facing the possibility of going home, taking her boot off, and just being able to start walking with crutches. This was, I don't know, this must be 2 or 3 weeks ago. It'd be good to catch up with her and see. She's probably running by now.
Incredible, isn't it? That is incredible. Yeah, that is absolutely wonderful. So, guys, we encourage you. I hope you're encouraged. You too can be a part of this. So, sign up. We do it online, so it doesn't matter where you are in the country. God moves online. Just He heals over Zoom, guys. Um, it is amazing. So, uh, yeah, join us and listen to the next episode because we'll be continuing to share about some of the wonderful testimonies that we've been hearing. God bless you. See you next time.